Don't pay cash for your next home. Here's why. What if I told you that paying cash for a house might be the worst financial decision you ever make? I know that sounds crazy. Most people dream about paying off their mortgage completely. But what I'm about to show you could literally cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars if you ignore it. Stay with me. Here's the thing nobody talks about. Wealthy people don't pay cash for real estate. They never have. And once you understand why, you'll never look at homeownership the same way again. Let me break this down into three parts. First, I'm going to show you exactly how cash purchases destroy your wealth. Then, I'm going to reveal the strategy that millionaires actually use. And finally, I'm going to show you the one scenario where paying cash might actually make sense. Let's start with a real example because numbers are more powerful when they're tangible. Imagine you have $300,000 sitting in your bank account. A beautiful house just hit the market for $300,000. Your instinct says buy it outright. No mortgage, no debt, total peace of mind, right? Wrong. Here's what actually happens when you do that. You immediately lock $300,000 into an illiquid asset. It's stuck there. You can't access it quickly. And more importantly, you completely abandon one of the most powerful wealth-building tools available, leverage. Let me show you what the wealthy person does instead in the exact same situation. A wealthy person takes out a mortgage. Let's say they get a 30-year fixed rate at 6%. Their monthly payment on that $300,000 is roughly $1,800. Completely manageable, right? But here's where it gets interesting. They still have that $300,000, or most of it anyway, after closing costs. Now they invested. The stock market has returned an average of 10% annually over the last 100 years. Some years it's higher, some years it's lower, but 10% is the historical average. If you invest $300,000 at 10% annual returns over 30 years, you end up with $5.2 million. Your mortgage payments on that 6% loan, you paid roughly $650,000 total in interest over those 30 years. So your net is 5.2 million minus 650,000, which is $4.55 million, all from the same 300,000. Now, the cash buyer, they have a paid-off house worth maybe 350,000 by then if it appreciated at 2% annually. That's it. The leverage buyer has 13 times more wealth. This isn't theoretical. This is how generational wealth actually gets built. But wait, there's another layer to this that most people completely miss. Mortgages come with a hidden superpower. You get to use the bank's money while keeping your own. Think about what that means for a second. You're controlling a $300,000 asset with only the down payment. In most cases, that's 20%. So you're controlling a $300,000 asset with $60,000 of your money. That's a 5-to-1 leverage ratio. You are 5 times more powerful in the real estate market than someone who needs to save up. And on top of that, your tenant could be paying your mortgage for you, or you could rent out a room, or you could build an ADU in the backyard. The cash buyer, they have dead capital, money that isn't working for them. Here's another thing the cash buyers never think about: tax deductions. Mortgage interest is tax deductible. Property taxes are tax deductible. If you're paying cash, you get zero tax benefits. Your accountant has nothing to work with. Someone with a $300,000 mortgage at 6% is deducting roughly $18,000 in year one. That could save them $5,000 to $7,000 in taxes. The cash buyer saves nothing. Now, I can already hear the objection. What about when the market crashes? What if you lose your investment money? Okay, fair point. Let's stress test this. What if the stock market crashes 50%? What if your investments go from 300,000 to 150,000? You still come out ahead. You'd have $1.85 million after 30 years, minus 650,000 in mortgage payments. That's still $1.2 million more than the cash buyer. The stock market would have to collapse and never recover for this strategy to backfire. And if that happens, we all have bigger problems than your house payment. Even in the absolute worst-case scenario, leverage wins. So when does paying cash actually make sense? There's really only one scenario. If you've already built significant wealth through other means and you have a legitimate concern about liquidity during an economic crisis. And even then, you could just get a home equity line of credit to maintain access to that capital. Otherwise, paying cash is leaving money on the table. Let me give you the actual strategy that wealthy people use. First, they secure a mortgage for as much as they responsibly can afford, not maxed out, responsible, usually 30 to 40% of their monthly income. Second, they take the remaining capital and invest it aggressively in diversified assets, index funds, real estate investment trusts, dividend stocks, and other income producing assets. Third, they let compound growth do the heavy lifting for 30 years while they pay a fixed mortgage payment that becomes less burdensome every year as their income grows. Fourth, when the mortgage is paid off, they have a paid off house and millions of dollars in invested assets. The cash buyer has a paid off house and not much else. Here's the uncomfortable truth. In America, the wealthiest people don't own their homes outright. They own mortgages on their homes, and they own the investments that the bank essentially funded for them. This is why financial literacy matters. Most people think debt is the enemy, but strategic debt borrowed at low rates and invested at higher rates is how wealth actually gets built. Your mortgage isn't a burden, it's a tool, and tools in the hands of people who know how to use them create generational wealth. So before you make that cash offer on a house, think about what you're really giving up. You're not just buying a home, you're deciding between financial security and financial freedom. The house payment might be gone either way, but only one strategy lets you build real wealth while you're paying it. Now you know.